Alright, guys, welcome to the finale of the Mongol Empire series. And of course, I started off as where we left off in the last episode, invading China. Of course, the main attack comes through Manchuria, right? So the good thing was this was right after a peace. The reason I attacked, right? Like I just went all in with this attack, mainly because it was right after, as you guys saw earlier, it was right after the peace deal, and so China would be virtually defenseless. And so as I went in, yeah, as you can see, it was just a constant advance. They really couldn't do anything. But of course, in the invasion of like the what do you call it? The not Manchuria, the other part, the southern part of China. I don't know if I could. I'll just call it southern China, right? South side of China, some part of China. I had to like fix my lines up because I missed like a spot, but yeah. Meanwhile, Manchuria was over and taken over completely in about 3 days. So that ended pretty quickly. Meanwhile, in my advance to the south, the lines were actually a little bit more thinner than they were in the north. But I was trying to fix that by shifting guys, like gradually shifting people towards like the right side, or towards like the coast, because that's where like less people were. And meanwhile, of course, I was getting like a steady stream of reinforcements from behind, like just not steady stream, but just there were a bunch of people behind. That's all I'm saying. Meanwhile, yeah, I stopped for a while just to like reorganize my troops, and then I continued the advance. And so the advance was going great. And then I remembered that I had troops in Hong Kong, and so I sent those guys to invade Hainan, the like other island there, because I realized they're gonna just end up taking just place there. And yeah, we took over China in 2 minutes, or roughly 2 minutes. And so, yeah, that was an entire conquest right then and there. Took over, just wiped out China immediately. And then from there, what I did next was I started spreading out my forces, okay, across China. Because, well, I had a feeling that, as you can see right now, there would be rebellions. And yeah, this wouldn't be the first that would not be the first rebellion either, because they'd keep popping up. It's China, so it mainly had to do with the population. Obviously, it's hard to keep down the massive population, so I was getting rebellions left and right, and I had to keep assimilating them back into my territory. And meanwhile, I don't know what India was dealing with, but yeah, I know I was just going around assimilating things, and the plague had broken out in Egypt, but who cares? There's nothing you can do about it. Actually, that's the thing. That's an interesting thing, though. Like, there's literally nothing you can do about diseases in this game, and now I feel like that's accurate to like real life, because think about it, right? Ancient history, they couldn't do shit against diseases, but then wouldn't, like, I don't know, some kind of medical care or something like that? I don't know. I feel like that would be a cool feature, but then again, that's not exactly cool. That's kind of boring at the same time. People would see that as boring. But whatever. Anyways, I decided that, since China's assimilation process was coming to close, like, to an end, I decided to just like end it right here. I conquered Lu, which was, just broken away from China randomly. And then I also organized all my troops in Manchuria, brought them all together. And this is just mainly me reorganizing my army after that war. Lu got taken over pretty fast, so that got wiped out. Meanwhile, the troops that I reorganized, I kept bunching them up together, because the thing is, it allows me to keep better track of units. Let me be real. Anyways, I sent the massive army that I'd made to go and attack Korea, or yeah, the Japanese held Korea. If you guys remember this, you know what? I could just say that, like, just canonically speaking, this is revenge for when Japan attacked me earlier. If you guys remember that. Uh, And so I just steamrolled the Korean peninsula all the way to the bottom. Japan really could not, like, they could not stop me. And I just annexed the whole thing, because that's all I needed. And then, of course, yeah, just assimilated it all. And then after that, I just reorganized my army. The thing was, strangely enough, that's just a bloodless campaign. So yeah, surprisingly bloodless campaign. So anyways, I had, by the way, in the Korean Peninsula, I had about 72,000 people. So what I did was I organized them all, and then I started spreading them out on the Indian border. And of course, I even recruited new units to strengthen my border provinces, or my army, you could say. And then, of course, I would use Iraq as the recruiting ground. But also, not to forget, Kuwait City. They had their massive population. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to use it. This is the reason I annexed Kuwait, all of Kuwait, instead of just the northern tip or northern part. Because I just wanted to, I just wanted to milk it for the, just absolutely just take advantage of the manpower. And after leaving Kuwait City with just 3,000 people, I puppeted them. So yeah, just from Kuwait alone, I got like 50,000, like around 50,000 people, which is absolutely insane. Just literally just from one province. Again, that's, I don't know, I find that insane. And so I would use those guys to all just man the borders with India on like over on like the Pakistan side. And I remember that Afghanistan was also a really, really good recruiting ground as well. And so I used their territories to also strengthen and like recruit stuff. Again, this is just me. This entire like several minutes of gameplay was just me mass recruiting for this invasion with India because it would be the biggest opponent I'd ever faced. Meanwhile, Serbia, okay, so Serbia decided that they wanted to, I don't know, Byzantines or Serbians, I don't know who started the war. They decided they want to be at war with Serbia. Turkey decided they want to go at war with, I think, Greece or one of my other vassals. And so I was like, okay, fine, you know what? Serbia was way stronger than the Byzantine Empire. I knew they would not last. And so I declared war on Serbia. And I started sending troops I recruited a mass amount of troops from Romania to try aid in the war. But the Serbians managed to beat them back. And I just, for some reason, because it was, I don't know why, but like, I don't know, like it's when they take back territory, but then like, I don't know, it's like when I'm in the territory of one of my vassals, I just lost all my troops because of that, and I was really annoyed because that was a lot of troops I just lost. Meanwhile, even Hungary was just like freaking like messing with like actually fucking up the like thing. Okay, thing is, how I said, how like previous episode I made most of these vassals as like a defensive measure, as like a defense on my borders. Well, thing was, these vassals were pretty weak. They could be conquered very easily. I tried to make peace with Serbia, but they weren't making peace on my terms, and I'm like, ain't no way I'm letting the Byzantine Empire just lose territory like that. And so I decided, fine, if you want to go, then let's go. You want to fight, let's fight. And so I decided, me as the Mongol Empire at this size, I was just gonna throw as much manpower at their face until they died. So that went down. Meanwhile, Hungary was still going at it against Poland and the Czech Republic, and I think they'd made peace with the Czech Republic as well. Meanwhile, I was trying to push them back. Meanwhile, in Romania, and also because I like thing was, what messed me up the most was the fact that like when my troops are in my vassal's territory, I lost them for some reason, and like that province gets taken over, I lose my troops. It's really stupid because like I'm at war with them actively. Like I defend, it doesn't make sense. Anyways, Serbia somehow managed to conquer their way all the way through to Slovakian territory. And so now I had to defend that area too, which wasn't too hard, but they just kept pushing back and it was so annoying, right? It's as if like Serbia, like, I was about to end the video right then and there. I could have ended the video, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not backing down from this war. Like I did not. I could have just left it as it was, but I was gonna teach the AI a lesson. Like don't mess with me, right? So I raised an arm. I took an army I raised and sent them to fight Serbia in the north. Meanwhile, in the south, I just continue to raise troops in Romania, right? And again, this war, like it took so much of my time, but I wasn't in the mood to back down. Meanwhile, luckily, Turkey versus Greece had succeeded a lot better than this thing. It had gone a lot better than the war with Serbia. It wasn't such a meat grinding or like a grinding war. Rather, it was more of just a victory for Greece that I didn't even need to. Like the Greeks were able to just win that war on their own for the most part. I didn't even need to win it myself. Also, meanwhile, Slovakia managed. They just took over Slovakia completely, the Serbians, and so I didn't need to worry about it being a vassal, like, going back to the territory of my vassal state, which would then make me lose troops for some reason. So I didn't have to worry about that, like, messed weird game mechanic. I don't know. But meanwhile, I tried to keep getting Syria to attack Turkey, but for some reason it didn't work. And so again, I don't know. At the time I was playing, it wasn't really concerned, like priority number one for me, because as you can tell, like I was preoccupied with other things. But right now, oh yeah, and then after that, I started pushing back in like the Byzantine Empire side of things, but the Serbians managed to push back in the Slovakia side of things. So again, this was just getting into an even more, like, this is just grinding again. It's just grinding of a war, like just. And then I looked over at Syria. I was wondering what's going on, and it turns out they had a liberty desire. So what I did was, instead of like, I decided to make peace with Turkey, but I decided, okay, that's not a good peace deal because the Greeks weren't taking everything. I wanted them to take as much territory as possible because they're my vassal. I strengthen them, right? But instead of making a peace deal, I decided to leave it for now. And even the Greeks didn't want to make a peace deal, so I just left it. And then, what did I do? All right, I proceeded. Now I had sufficiently built up my forces in the north, and I had built up my forces in the south too, because like I was defending there. I took more of a defensive like approach, right, to the south as well. And so now we started to push back against the Serbians and the Hungarians at the same time. Both were gonna be collapsing. And so the Serbians started losing provinces in like their Hungarian territory. Meanwhile, I started conquering Hungary, and I started pushing from the south and north, closing in from all sides of the thing. I hesitated attacking Belgrade or Belgrade, which I think it's Belgrade though. But yeah, now Serbia was finally being put in its place because, bro, like, who dares attack my vassals? Let's be real. But then Serbia started pushing back decently, so I was like, you know what? Let's end it here. I think this is a favorable enough peace deal. So with Hungary, I decided to release Slovakia again, and I released Slovakia once again, and then I proceeded to take Hungarian provinces, while the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth took like Czech provinces, and so that was the peace deal for Hungary. Meanwhile, I started moving troops down to try conquer Serbia and like finish them off, but I think what ended up happening was the Serbians like ended up sort of like pushing back, and so at some point I decided, okay, you know what, this is enough. And then I released. Oh yeah, I was gonna release Bulgaria, but I decided not to do that, and instead I decided to eventually just release Montenegro, Montenegro, yeah, and then I attacked the Slovakian territory and the Hungarian territory. And then I decided to take some territory for the Byzantine Empire, so that they could have it later. And like, while I couldn't re-release Hungary in its like current form, I thought about what else I could do, and then I decided to give it to Austria-Hungary, because I mean, why not strengthen my vassals? So meanwhile, I returned Slovakia to its old borders. And now I'll be honest, Serbia actually did not lose too much. Like, they weren't that weak. Let's be real. Like, they still had most of their like main provinces, the provinces that mattered, right? But then, yeah, I gave that extra province, ended up giving it to Transnistria, and so now my wall of vassals was safe or protected. Serbia and Hungary were decimated. Meanwhile, I decided to turn my attention to Syria. They were being a very disloyal vassal, and so I decided to replace them. And I pondered who to replace them with. And I thought about it. I thought about other A names. I was gonna go with Assyria, but then I was like, maybe. And then like I decided, you know what? Release one of the nations I have in this list I got. And I decided to go with Gagauzia, yeah, where I know these guys start off as like, you can release them as Moldova, like they start off like Moldovan provinces, so that's there. But anyways, yeah, these guys were now my vassal state. They were the ones in charge of Syria, uh, and I proceeded to take over Turkey, which now gave the Greeks the peace deal they wanted. And so now, finally, my western border was safe, and I gave the Turkish provinces to like Gagosea, right? Now, I could finally focus on my true goal from the start of this video, and also, okay, yeah, I wasn't done recruiting, right? I recruited even more people from Iraq, as if the current invasion force was not enough, because I realized that there were some points in the lines where like it was actually kind of weak. And so again, I kind of realized that it was a little bit inefficient of me to send troops from Iraq to like all the way outside of Asia, but honestly, I didn't care. I didn't mind waiting. Meanwhile, the Maldives, who, as you guys remember, became my puppet state, went to war with Lesotho, and then they were just at war with me now. And I realized that Mauritius was a part of that alliance. And so what I decided to do was, I looked over and I was like, you know what, sure, why not? And then I took some troops from Europe, and then I thought about it, and I just sent him over to Mauritius to attack. Overwhelming forces to attack Mauritius. And meanwhile, the troops from Iraq had finally arrived in their positions, and I did a quick game save and just invaded India. Sad though. Sad thing was that they were actually pretty good allies with me, but again, no time for what do you call it? we gotta do this, formidable nation. It's been 5 episodes in the making. We gotta do this. So yeah, the invasion began. I pushed from all sides, or all sides that I needed, because I didn't want to take extra, right? Of course, I don't do that. Meanwhile, I pushed from the Pakistani side of things as well, and yeah, yeah, I think the invasion speaks for itself. So soon enough, I was like, I mean, like the border nicely runs along the Indus River. Gotta give it. I kind of like that because I don't know. I find that oddly satisfying. But yeah, no, the border, I quickly reached the Indus River, and so that was pretty fast. Meanwhile, over in China, I started taking back the Chinese provinces that they'd taken earlier in the video. And yeah, it was just an onslaught. No. So soon enough, I'd reached my goals in like, the required territories in the north, like in the Pakistan side, or should I say Pakistan? I mean, I feel like should I just say Pakistan side, or should I say just West India? I feel like West India is more appropriate. I'm just saying West India. Meanwhile, the invasion over on the east was also going pretty well. I mean, look, they really had no troops to stop me. So also, I sent the troops on the island of Hainan to, I think, attack the Vietnam provinces that they previously they owned, because I just wanted to take them, because why not? And yeah, no, the thing was, oh yeah, by the way, I won that war in Mauritius, but then they kind of managed to like hold back one of my lines. I don't know, was it hold back or break through, but they managed to like push through my lines and get like some troops to break them, or I can't speak. Okay, they managed to get through my lines, right? And I sent some troops back. They started spreading out. I was like, shit, the AI is gonna do this. And now was when I started to see like the Indians like sort of push back, right, against this absolute onslaught, because there, sorry, excuse me, there were parts of my lines where like they were just like weaker, where like other places the troops were concentrated. But luckily, I managed to plug the gap, and we were right back to just conquering again. So yeah, guys, again, this is a lesson on the importance of maintaining your lines. They'd even managed to somewhat break my line, break the line in like the in West India. Okay, and meanwhile, I had almost pretty much successfully taken back most of the Chinese provinces. All that was left was the provinces a little bit north to like Nepal, and once those were taken, I made a speedy peace deal. But I decided to before that, I decided to take more territory in Vietnam, because I just wanted to take it over. But the Indians took that time to manage to push back. So again, that's on me. That one was on me. Okay, I took extra time. So that's on me. I had to shift a bunch of troops from the more concentrated regions to lesser. And so I finally made it, and I finally took all the provinces I needed from India, and I annexed everything. Instead of taking the Vietnam provinces, I decided to release Vietnam, and I realized that I didn't need any territory from Vietnam, so I just like released them. So now it's kind of like an awkward North Vietnam, South Vietnam thing. I don't know, but it's still one country, so yeah, that's there. Meanwhile, in the northeast India, I decided to just annex this one region nearby, and then I decided to re-release them, but like as three provinces, so that I could guard my borders since I didn't need those. And then meanwhile, I sent some more troops to invade Myanmar, and now I could, because I had Vietnam as a vassal, I just had all three. I could attack them from literally every single side, and so yeah, the invasion went down, and it was honestly over before you knew it. And so I annexed the whole thing. I was pondered re-releasing Lao, but then I decided, you know what? I gave the unneeded territories to Vietnam to unite their country, so make it one whole piece. And finally, I just before forming the Mongol Empire, I looked to see if I had any territorial integrities. Luckily, the Albanians had become a little bit more, obedient, and so I formed the Mongol Empire. Finally. Cue the celebration music.